We all think of detox. We think of colon cleanses, enemas, colonics, maybe a liver cleanse. And those are all fine. I have not a problem with any of them. And sometimes I use them because we need to open up downstream. However, you will never get well from those things. Believe me. Can't even count how many of those things I've done. You have to get to the cell. You have to get into the deep nerve tissue of the brain. That's what I mean by getting upstream. Most people have hormone problems, can't lose weight, have no energy, have brain fog because of the toxins that have bioaccumulated in the brain. What I've educated doctors to do is something called true cellular detox. And there's 3 phases. There's a prep phase, a body phase where our goal is just to kind of clear extracellular. And then there's the brain phase. That's where we go deep.
The Vidal Speaks podcast.
Episode 68, Dr. Dan Pompa, How to Properly Detox Heavy Metals, Environmental Toxins, and Chemicals. Welcome to Vidal Speaks. My name is Deborah Vidal, former 11-year LPGA golf pro turned classical homeopath, certified plant-based nutritionist, and wellness coach. Each week here on Vidal Speaks, we bring you knowledge, inspiration, or natural remedies to help you take charge of your health and feel your best. I believe health is freedom and knowledge is power. So tuning in each week will give you the power to take steps towards freeing yourself from the chains that hold you back from having the energy to do all you want in life. No matter where you are in your journey of wellness, Vidal Speaks can help. I promise. Welcome back. This is the Vidal Speaks podcast, and I'm Deborah Vidal, known as Vidal to many. And I'm thrilled to bring you this show every week because I want to teach you guys how to heal no matter where you are on the ladder of health. I want you to not really trust anyone with your health choices without you first knowing why you may have that disease and if there's anything you can do naturally for your specific problem. And even if you do choose to trust a doctor or a practitioner with your health, then I want you to know what it is they're offering you and if it makes sense to you or if it would cause you bigger issues down the road. Knowledge is power, you guys. For too many years, patients have put too much faith into the hands of their doctor or practitioner without having any knowledge of health, nutrition, and medicine. And without that knowledge, then how would they know if their doctor is recommending something that could be the right path for them or something that's safe? Or could it be something dangerous and just cause bigger problems later? That's why we have to learn all about health and our alternative options. And also, so many people out there are struggling with these undiagnosable symptoms and syndromes. And I want to restore your belief that you too can heal. Sadly, the way our medical world treats these patients is by lumping them all into a few categories of illnesses, like autoimmune diseases, chronic fatigue syndrome, what else? Fibromyalgia, Lyme's disease, chronic pain syndromes of some kind. There is little success in the medical world treating any of these, but by them giving you this title, it helps them categorize you, and that allows them to try a laundry list of drugs which almost never work to restore a patient back to health. That group of people that are falling into these categories is growing by the millions worldwide. It's my goal to teach all of you out there, whether you're healthy already and just want to maintain a long, vibrant life, or whether you could just use a little boost in your current health, or whether you're one of those in that category of mystery illnesses and currently suffering a lot. The bottom line is we all need help. We all have to work hard in today's toxic world to be healthy. But before we get there and talk about that, we need to speak about why we are sick. I believe behind every illness lies the causation of toxins. There are many kinds of toxins. They're in our food, our water, our medicines, our households, and our environment is so toxic more than ever before. And as I tell you guys all the time, you must make a conscious effort to detox or there will come a day of overload. And that is when the diagnosis of some horrible disease shows up. You know, it's like that bucket. One drip, one drip, and all that time we're not feeling any symptoms. And suddenly that one drip is one too many. So if you're not sick yet, it's still really crucial to detoxify to keep your health. I believe no one will have good health without working on detoxification. Speaking of detoxification, my guest today is big in the world of detox. His name is Dr. Dan Pompa. Sadly, he became the expert because he was one of those people diagnosed with a mystery illness and he was unable to find answers for a long time, so he suffered and was sick for years. But destiny led him to a doctor that suggested he was mercury toxic, even though his blood test had showed negative. He then went on a mercury detox protocol similar to the Dr. Cutler protocol, which you guys can learn about in episode 38 and 9. And for those that have been with me for a long time, I'm sure you guys remember that one. Well, Dr. Pompa used that protocol to heal himself to a place that was even better before he got sick. So you're going to learn something about his journey when I talk to him today. But more than that, I want you to learn about the importance of detoxing and the proper way to do it. Dr. Pompa was the first guest I wanted to have on this show when I began. He's a busy man because he created this protocol that detoxes all the way to the cell in the brain. And his life work now is to train as many doctors and practitioners this method. So he's always booked. But I finally got him, you guys. And you're going to love this show today, and I'm super happy. I discovered Dr. Pompa when I was reading an article about a product called Detox. It's a form of zeolite which claims, unlike any other zeolite, that it would not test positive for any aluminum or heavy metals. Even Mike Adams tested it in his own personal lab and it had nothing in it, and he was shocked because he had tested so many other zeolites on the market. Anyway, after I read that article about the Detox product, I went to look where I could buy it, and that's how I found Dr. Pompa's website. That was a turning point for me because you guys know I'm the detox queen. And when I read about a product that can detox all the way to the cells in the brain, okay, you've got me interested. Well, I hope I've got you guys interested and you're asking right now, so what is this Detox? Well, good question, you guys. I'm going to read you their description because that way I can be more accurate. Detox drops are a cutting-edge way to remove environmental toxins like metals, chemicals, and pesticides from your body safely and 100% naturally. They utilize a new patented process that creates hydrolyzed clinoptilolite fragments that are small enough to permeate our cell membranes and our blood-brain barrier. And yes, I looked up how to say that word and I'm not going to say it again. They're called HCF for short, okay? And because these hydrolyzed fragments are water soluble, they have the ability to penetrate the cell membrane, and that's what enables them to remove toxins from the inside of every cell. Detox gently supports the body's inherent method of detoxification without disrupting normal body function. The drops contain ingredients provided by nature with no known allergens, and they start working the minute you take them. Safe and proven to work throughout the body, these unique drops work to remove the source of that which is blocking your natural state of excellent health. So I'm sure many of you are saying, wow, that sounds easy, right? Well, detox is not that easy, even using these drops. That's because so many of us have toxins built up over our lifetime, and they've caused a lot of things to break down. So it takes time to get well on this deep of a level, but it's really the only way to be truly well. Therefore, it's something we all need to do no matter what our age is. Babies today are born with so much mercury, and they get it from their moms because their mom's heavy metal load when they're pregnant gets transferred to the baby. It even comes from generations before their mom. That all gets passed on. And in addition, they're filled with so many vaccines that are loaded with aluminum and mercury. How can their little bodies handle this? Well, they're not doing it very well, are they? Because anymore, you see the rates of childhood cancer skyrocketing, autoimmune diseases are on the rise, and autism is at a record high. And then the adults my age that lived with a mouthful of amalgam fillings all their life that leach directly into their brain every day, no matter how old they are. That's so scary. So no matter where you are on your journey of health, I'd start by doing a deep detox. But if you have a condition that you have no answers for, like these poor mystery illness people, well, then I feel like you have nothing to lose. And you guys should go back and listen to episode 38 and 39, and then listen to episode 62, which is the one I did on neurotoxins, and listen to this one over and over again, because you need to learn how to detox your body, because underlying all those illnesses, I am sure, is the diagnosis of toxic overload. All of these things like metals, molds, viruses and bacteria and funguses, they can make us so sick. But you guys, we can heal from these if we learn how to truly detox. Today you'll learn more about how one should attempt what is known as an upstream detox, which means that we get to the cell and the brain for our detox. Upstream detox is what Dr. Pompa calls a true cellular detox, because it utilizes a true binding agent that gets into the cell. The cytodetox drops are a true binder, not a weak binder. Cilantro is a weak binder. A true binder is something that's equivalent to DMSA or DMPS, which is what they use on the Dr. Cutler protocol. However, in the United States, DMSA or DMPS has been banned, and now you can only get it by prescription, and it's really hard to get, so people just can buy it from Australia now. So I was so thrilled, as you guys can imagine, to find these cytodetox drops almost 2 years ago. I got them because I still believe my partner Lloyd's nerve pains are from neurotoxin damage, but back then I had no idea what to do with this protocol. I just had the drops and I really didn't know what to do. And as I learned, I came across another issue, because Dr. Pompa, he promotes a paleo ketogenic diet, and that's just not what I promote or believe, as most of you know. So it made it really difficult for Lloyd and I, because we couldn't use his supplements or the food recommendations, and therefore I felt really alone and without any protocol. But I still love the idea of his protocol, because the system of how to detox is the same. And since I'm one of the only plant-based practitioners that's done his training, I'm determined now to set up a way to be his plant-based vegan practitioner, so that we can give people another option, and an easy one like he's offering, with everything in a kit. But really, all that has to change are the supplements and the diet recommendations, because the rest is the same. So I'm hoping to tell you guys more about this as I continue my journey. In my conversation with Dr. Pompa today, I asked him all about his protocol so you guys can see how he does it. And like the Cutler protocol, he uses the drops to detox in on and off cycles. This is because the body needs a rest, and it gives it time to recover before you start the next cycle. But even before that will work, we need to prepare the body for detox. And this is what I love so much about his protocol. He has 3 stages. First, you prepare the body and you repair the cell. That's a big one for him. You'll hear him talk a lot about repairing the cell and the cell membrane. Then you do the body detox, which is step 2. And finally, in the last stage, you do the brain detox. So it depends how sick you are and how long you've been sick to determine how long it will take to be detoxed and feeling well again. For some, it's 90 days, and for other people, it's 2 years. But for those people that are going to take a long time, I guarantee you they're going to feel better and better along the way. I think in these on and off cycles, you're always going to experience good days and bad days. It's not like a constant improvement, but it's up and down. Some people feel better on the drops and then bad on their off cycles. And other people feel good on the off cycles and bad on the drops. So it really depends. But along the way and looking back, you're going to really see a lot of progress. And lastly, I want to tell you what Dr. Pompa calls his 5 R's, because you're going to hear him mention them and you can read about them on his website too. But just for the sake of this conversation in our episode today, I want to be sure and tell you what they are, because he doesn't explain what they are, but he talks about his 5 R's. So the first one, R1, is to remove the source of toxicity and to let the body execute the healing. R2 is add quality fats to your diet to support the regeneration of the cellular membrane and to help balance hormones. R3, increase ATP via mitochondrial biogenesis to improve cellular function. R4, decrease chronic inflammation by dropping sugars, he includes grains and bad fats from your diet, and removing environmental and emotional toxins as much as possible. R5, reestablish methylation to support and control epigenetic gene regulation and prevent disease. Now, I actually could do a whole show on talking about these 5 principles, but I'm going to save that for another time. Sorry I'm taking a little more time today to talk to you before we start the interview with Dr. Pompa, but I just want to be sure you understand some of the principles of what he does in his detox, because it's his very unique protocol, and I don't want you to feel lost when you're hearing the conversation. But I think I'm going to do a follow-up episode after this one so I can just take more time to go really over the importance of doing a proper detox and how we do it. And in that episode, I can go over those 5 R's in more detail too. So stay tuned for that one coming up soon. But now let's go meet Dr. Pompa, okay? Dr. Pompa completed his undergraduate education at the University of Pittsburgh in 1988 and earned his Doctor of Chiropractic degree at Life University College of Chiropractic in Marietta, Georgia in 1995, where he graduated second in a class of 150. His journey back to health continued to lead him to a voracious passion to research and learning beyond what is often readily understood. He and his wife, Marilee, live in Park City, Utah with their 5 children and avidly bike ski and enjoy every day in their next chapter of life after moving from their hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 2012. Their passion for leading others to what they have learned, as well as their trust in God, drives their journey. Even though Dr. Pompa no longer practices chiropractic, his understanding of cellular healing and his 5R principles as the roadmap to healing has led many requests to be a speaker at a large chiropractic seminars to hundreds of professionals who learn his detoxification program from neurotoxic conditions and other unexplainable illnesses. Dr. Pompa has established his coaching and teaching on a firm and proving conviction that the crisis of modern-day allopathic medicine is the sad result of physicians chasing symptoms with medication rather than addressing the root cause of disease. This even occurs with functional medicine, and his approach to getting to the upstream cause is what separates him from others in allopathic medicine as well as functional medicine. His clients receive coaching based on the fact that God created the human body with the ability to heal itself when interferences such as heavy metal toxicity, poor nutrition, and subluxations, whether physical, emotional, or chemical, are removed. Dr. Pompa is walking testimony of the body's amazing aptitude for healing itself. Following the debilitating effects of a 3-year battle against chronic fatigue syndrome, his deteriorating health manifested in anxiety, insomnia, brain fog, panic attacks, nervousness, auditory and chemical sensitivities, mood swings, irritability, irrational anger, severe gastrointestinal disturbances, blisters, dizziness, unusual sounds and ringing in the ears, and twitching facial muscles. Death seemed a better alternative, but God had other plans for him. His faith, personal victories over disease, and years of extensive research have enabled Dr. Pompa to help others suffering from chronic diseases such as chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, autism, sensory integration disorders, and other neurotoxic conditions. The most rewarding aspects of his career are the walking miracles seen in his office each day, the lives changed, and the minds renewed to God-guided principles of health and healing. Okay, you guys ready to go listen to Dr. Pompa finally? Yeah, I bet you are. Okay, just sit back and relax and enjoy this one. Here we go. Hi, Dr. Pompa. You know, I found your work on detoxing some years ago when I was on my intense investigation on how to detox my patients and myself, because I was a homeopath. I got so many sick patients with all these mystery illnesses and mystery symptoms. So I'm so thrilled that you agreed to be on my show, and thank you so much. This was one of my prayers, is for you to say yes to come on the show. So thank you so much.
I love it. I love to spread the word. The world needs to hear the message that I learned from pain to purpose. So that's my mission.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we need to start, because I know you got here. A lot of practitioners get to where they're at because they got sick and they either learn to get better and then want to pass the word. And
right.
you got mercury sick and toxic and poisoned from mercury. And I'd like you to start by I know you've probably told it a bunch of times, but just give us a brief story about how you got sick.
Yeah, it's so funny. I have told it a lot of times, but sometimes I remember these like different negative anchors, if you will. Like when I'm telling it, I did a Facebook Live on sleep and anxiety. I did like a 3-part series, and my wife was doing the camera work for me. And when I talked about it, I got like really choked up because I remember the pain. It would not just go with the lack of sleep, but it was the debilitating anxiety that I would wake up with and have, and even through the days. And so, there was so much to my story that I just like re-anchored back. So even though I tell it a lot of times, you never know. But, it came just oddly. It's probably the best fitness of my life. And all of a sudden, I was not recovering from any type of workout and any type of fitness, anything. And then it went from that to just chronic fatigue. And then it went from that to insomnia, panic attacks. And then bizarre things. I mean, I became intolerant to every food I ate. It didn't matter if it was a salad, chicken. I mean, didn't matter. Trying to figure it out. And, basically became so chemically sensitive, I became non-functional. So I went from a thriving chiropractic practice and helping people to basically not even being able to function, really. I mean, I couldn't even make it through a day. But, and I, like I said, I mean, I just going back, I always remember these, oh my gosh, I remember having that symptom. And a lot of the times it's my clients that find me and they start telling me their story. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I had that exact symptom. But, so it was through that I had to figure out what was wrong. And my inherent philosophy, honestly, I say inherent because my father, who was just a bricklayer, kind of raised me with the philosophy of there's a cause for everything. And, and I just was looking upstream to figure out what went wrong. And it took me some years, honestly, of suffering, but I realized it was mercury. And, it was a very bright endocrinologist who I made friends with. I actually said, Dan, I think you have mercury poisoning. I said, yeah, I thought so too. But a year ago, I did a blood test and it was negative. He said, that's the wrong test. And then he was right. And then I asked the question that most people would ask, well, where do you think I got it from? And he said, do you have any dental work done around this time? And sure enough, I did, as I found out. And I had just 2 amalgams removed incorrectly and still had 6 in. And that led to my downfall.
Yeah. And, I interviewed a biological dentist on my podcast here for that reason, because I've had a friend that got sick from taking her mercury out too fast in the wrong way, and people need to know that. So my listeners are very familiar about the dangers of doing that. Yeah. And we will get into more when we talk about your protocol about that. Yeah. But that's it's so incredible and so sad to hear your story, but I've heard it so many times from other people, and you're one of the lucky people that have found the answer to your illness. Many don't. Yeah, because right. There's so many symptoms of mercury poisoning. Some people, it's not even the chemical sensitivities. I just recently had people send me emails and they'll say, oh, I have this symptom, I have this, do you know what it could be? And mercury poisoning or other heavy metal poisoning can come out in so many ways that people are just so falling through the cracks of society, not only being able to survive and being suicidal, but they're also feeling so hopeless and just like medical world has no answers for them. So that's why this is really my most important show. And I know you're very familiar with Dr. Cutler because he's the one, I think, whose protocol you followed when you healed. And I interviewed him on the show. He did a double episode with me. So my listeners are familiar with that. But we're going to review some of that. And that was my next question is that what you use to heal?
Yeah, partly. Yeah, it was part of it. You don't heal from this just by taking a chelator. Cutler, he's spoken at my seminars and great guy. And just he's right on. When you're taking a chelator, a true binder, a true chelator, which is part of the real answer. So people are reaching out for a lot of different things like chlorella, cilantro. It's just they're weak binders. And he makes that very clear. I have for years, and we've tested them. And I think in natural health, it's a big problem. But then you go to the other side, and they're using IV DMPS, which they're using a real chelator. However, they're throwing in a ton at once, and then you get this massive redistribution. Very dangerous.
Yeah.
Not good at all.
Yeah.
And so Andy's protocol is using a real chelator and using it correctly within its half-life. So if it's DMSA, it's taken every 4 hours. If it's DMPS, it's every 8 hours. He's right on the money. Using ALA, every 3 to 4 hours, moving it out of the deeper tissue. However, caution, you have to use that within a system of what I call true cellular detox, meaning that if you don't upregulate cell function, the cell will never cooperate in the detoxification process. If you don't fix the downstream pathways and, get all of this together in what I call a multi-therapeutic approach, then you're not going to get well. So a lot of people said, oh, I've done this, I've done that, but real detox has to occur at the cell. So a lot of what I learned in this whole thing is, really the parts of cell function that really are integral as far as real detox. For example, fixing the cell membrane. It's critical. Therein lies the hormone receptors. Therein lies the fluidity of the cell, how it moves things in and out. I mean, that is just, it's such a sticking point for people in detox. Methylation, is such a sticking point for so many people in detox. And, cell energy, something as simple as raising intracellular ATP is, again, a massive sticking point to do it right or wrong. So my 5 R's has become a roadmap to what I teach practitioners. Now the public's really caught on to it, and it's just a roadmap on what we need to do to fix the cell to get well and fix the cell to detox. You said something that I don't want to just gloss over.
No, that's good because I want to go over that, what you're talking about.
I mean, because that's the key. That's what people are missing. That's what I've taught, hundreds of practitioners around the country. And, we're getting amazing results because, we're going upstream to that, and there's so many people that are challenged out there that they're looking at their symptoms. And you said something very correctly. Mercury can cause a lot of different symptoms, just like any other neurotoxin. And it depends on what parts of the brain it affects and how it affects you. So very important to note.
Yeah. And so while we're there on your 5 R's, we'll go right into that. I had that to ask you in a little bit, but let's go into that. But before we do that, because I'm not sure the listeners know, I know from reading your work, but can you describe what upstream and downstream detoxing is so that they're clear what you mean?
Yeah, well, that's a great question because, I think that we all think of detox. We think of colon cleanses, enemas, colonics, maybe a liver cleanse, maybe the 10-day, intestinal cleanse. And those are all fine. I have not a problem with any of them. And sometimes I use them, right? Because we need to open up downstream. We need to open up the colon. We need to open up the liver. It's part of it. However, You will never get well from those things. Believe me, I've done, can't even count how many of those things I've done. You have to get to the cell. That's what I mean by getting upstream. And I'll be even more specific. Get to the cell. You have to get into the deep nerve tissue of the brain. Most people have hormone problems, can't lose weight, have no energy. I can keep going down the list, brain fog, because of the toxins that have bioaccumulated in the brain. So what I've educated doctors to do is something called true cellular detox. And there's 3 phases. There's a prep phase, a body phase where our goal is just to kind of clear extracellular. And then there's the brain phase. That's where we go deep. That's going upstream to why you still don't feel well. That's the bottom line.
Okay, so let's start at that first stage, the prep phase. How long is that and what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, the prep phase can last anywhere from a month to 3, where we're preparing the cell function and preparing downstream detox pathways. So we want to get the liver, going, the kidneys, the gut healed. And, again, I train my doctors on a lot of what I call ancient healing strategies to fix the gut as part of preparing for detox. And, and then the cell function, that's where my 5 R's plays in, upregulating that cell. Okay, that's prep phase. And that is critical before you actually say, I'm going to detox.
So, and you're doing that with supplements and diet, but
Diet.
what kind of supplements?
Yeah, diet, supplements, of course.
Are you using like glutathione and?
I've had to create with some really bright biochemists, some cellular formulas, as we now call them. One is an intracellular glutathione product, very important to raise that in the cell. Methylation, using active methyl donors, etc. That was something that we created because of all the different SNPs. People have problems with methylation.
And can people buy these, or are they only sold through practitioners they would see to do your protocol?
Yeah,
they're
only sold through practitioners like yourself.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. And so in this first stage of prepping, you're doing it with these formulations that you've had made up with all the necessary things in it to prepare the body.
Correct. And the cell membrane, we had to formulate a product in a specific 4-to-1 ratio of omega-6 and 3. A lot of people are taking fish oil today. And if you get a good one, there's some benefit, but a lot of people are going in what we call omega-3 dominance, which is a new problem today.
Mm-hmm. Now, I just know because I am a vegan and I know you work with a couple vegan doctors, and that product I think that you make is not vegan, if I'm correct. Is there an alternative for a vegan for a product in that phase to help heal the cell?
There's a product I like called Pure Form, and it's a great product. Really targets the membrane well too. When you take too much fish oils, omega-3, out of balance without other types of fats, and this is a whole nother subject. I don't want to go down this road.
Right.
But you can dislodge cardiolipin from the mitochondrial membrane and set up basically more fluidity, if you will, in the cell membranes, and that can be a problem. But anyways, another story.
Okay, so in this stage 1, we're doing supplements. I'm saying in your case, these very specific supplements to prepare the body and along with the cell membrane. And I'm sure at that point they're doing some lifestyle changes and sleeping and, just trying to heal on their lifestyle thing. And that can take up to 3 months. Now, in that stage, you talked about methylation, but methylation doesn't necessarily go away because isn't methylation problems also coming from the poisoning of the heavy metals too, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely right. I mean, when you have these toxins, stockpiled for years in the tissues, they're going to continue to come out and deplete methylation, glutathione, inflame the membrane, etc.
Yeah, and sadly, so many practitioners have it backwards. They're trying to improve methylation and fix methylation problems and tell you that you have a problem with your genes, when really what you have is a symptom of toxicity, whether it's pesticides or heavy metals or whatever it is. I mean, how can your methylation be right if you're so toxic? So,
I'm so glad to hear you say that. Everyone's jumping on the gene bandwagon. I mean, I have the worst possible scenario, SNP, if you will, in my methylation. And, my methylation's perfectly fine now that I got my toxins under control.
That's such a, I've learned this kind of the hard way because my partner, Lloyd, has chronic pains in his feet that are undiagnosable, like really horrible kind of neuropathy pains that he's had for 8 years, and we haven't been able to solve it. And one of the last things we tried was working with kind of a gene person that put him on millions of supplements to try to redo his genes. And you know what? It didn't do anything.
No, it's a failed model. Here's what we've learned. When the SNPs came out, everyone got really excited, including myself to some extent. And
yeah, me too.
Yeah, right. It's like, hey, this could be really good, right? And then a couple years later, I'm like, oh man, it's not what we thought. So the problem is that you can have this particular SNP, and for your listeners, we're talking about genes that could potentially predispose you to certain things. But the problem is, what we've learned is, the innate intelligence rules. It can go around this in multiple ways, changing epigenetics, changing other genetic pathways to where now you're stronger here to make up for this. It's so complicated.
Yeah, and you have to use your intuition, because sometimes I would say to myself, okay, like, because I did the gene test and I know what mutations or SNPs that I have and he had, and I used to think, but there's a lot of ones that I have that I haven't even looked up, like maybe it's for ALS or breast cancer or something like that, but I don't go thinking that all my symptoms are coming because I have this propensity to some kind of mutation. So, but we've got into this whole MTFR thing as if this is the cause of all our symptoms, when really, okay, yes, it's a problem, methylation, because it is how we have to allow our body to naturally detox. But what we have to understand, it's not the cause, it's the result of toxins. And that's what I'm trying to get the message.
Yeah, I mean, we know now, like I said, the body is so intelligent that, we know these SNPs now, but there's hundreds, thousands of others that we haven't discovered, that we go, oh, but when you have this SNP, it's like most people have adapted with this one. And this is a superpower SNP that makes you actually better at using methyl groups. I mean, it is, partly absurd when you think about it, but you're right. The key is it's what turns on these bad genes. It's what, really is the toxins and the stressors that we have to get rid of upstream.
Yeah. Okay. And then step 2, what was step 2?
Yeah, so phase 2, if you will, the prep phase is phase 1, and then phase 2 is the body phase, where we start using real, true binders or chelators, and then we want to pull out, not too deep yet. We're just trying to, more extracellular and, really set up what we call a concentration gradient. So if we start clearing the body, now we set up a lower concentration in the body, and as we remember back from our science, I don't want to lose your listeners, but things move from higher concentration to lower. So scientists get this, doctors seem not to, but that's the point of doing a body phase before we do the deeper brain phase, because we want to set up this concentration so things naturally move from higher to lower. So how long does it last? Approximately 3 or 4 months. We want to clear out most of what's in the body, and then we move into the deeper phase of the brain phase.
Okay, so step 2, then you're basically working like on organs and lymph fluid and bones and kind of everywhere below the brain.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we want to use, you said about DMSA and Cutler's work, and, it's water soluble. It doesn't do a good job of getting into the cell, which is great. It just stays outside and sets up that concentration. There's a product called Detox you're familiar with, and it's
I love it.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? It's a completely natural particle that they used in nature for thousands of years. It's a liquid clinoptilolate particle. Now, it doesn't matter, you probably haven't heard of that, but it's from volcanic ash, if you will. It's called zeolite. Now, again, I'm not a fan of liquid zeolites. We've tested them in the past. This gentleman from Greece hydrolyzed this, and because there's 10, maybe 20 liquid zeolites on the market, and they really don't even leave the gut. I mean, if you have leaky gut, they do. But there's some limitations, and many of them are even contaminated with lead and aluminum. That's another story.
Well, that is the problem with them, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Mike Adams tested ours because he was doubtful.
I know. That's how I found you guys.
Yeah, exactly. I was doubtful too, by the way. So
I know. I watched that whole video with you and the inventor and just learned all about it. It's so interesting, and it's a wonderful product. So does Cyto Detox come into stage 2 then?
Yeah, it does, because it's interesting particle, because there's particles that cross in deeper and there's particles that don't. So we start in with a lower dose of the Cyto Detox. By the time we get to the brain phase, we do something that Cutler made popular. Now we combined it with ALA, alpha lipoic acid, which is a fat soluble real chelator. It has a similar mechanism that DMSA or DMPS has on it. It has this double sulfahedral group, thiol group on it, they call it. Anyways, and it makes it a real cool binder, but it's not as strong as, say, DMSA or DMPS or Cyto Detox. However, it does an amazing job of bringing out these deeper lodged toxins in the nerve tissue because it's fat soluble. So it goes deep in there. But it doesn't.
So wait. Let me just see, because I don't know if I got this. Are you talking about ALA that's fat soluble, or your Cyto Detox drops?
ALA is fat soluble. Cyto Detox is water soluble. Okay, so ALA is going to make its way much deeper into the brain and nerve tissue, right? So in the brain phase, we bring in the ALA used properly, but we use it now with Cyto as well. Cyto crosses the blood-brain barrier, which is really cool and unique, unlike DMPS, DMSA. Some particles do, some particles don't, which is really clever, actually. But what Cyto brings with the ALA is a really cool combination, because Cyto is a much stronger bond, but it just doesn't go as deep. The ALA is a weaker bond, but it does a great job of going deep and pulling things out. It just doesn't do a good job of bringing it all the way out of the body. That's why the old process of putting it with DMPS or DMSA was always a good thing. But now we can put ALA with the Cyto Detox. Now we're completely 100% natural, and we're getting into that deep brain, which is key. So that's
that is so cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It really works. I mean, it's not my opinion. We have thousands of doctors doing this.
Right. And what's interesting, because and that's one of the things I really want to clarify today was, okay, so Cyto Detox then replaces DMSA or DMPS, but from what you're saying, it's kind of both. It's acting as a kind of weaker ALA because it does enter and cross the blood-brain barrier, but it doesn't go as deeply. So when you use it with ALL in that third stage or the brain stage, then it crosses the blood-brain barrier as ALA would, which the others don't, DMSA or DMPS. So it acts as the true binder to bring the stuff out of the body, but it also acts as the go in and get the stuff too.
Yeah, no, it's magic. Well, look, when you use it within this whole system that I call True Cellular Detox, therein lies the magic. Because here's the thing. So think about Cyto Detox as the vehicle, if you will, that brings the toxins from the cell all the way out of the body, right? So think of it as a safe vehicle. And now remember, the 5R work that we're doing, we're upregulating cell function. So that starts the cell naturally getting rid of toxins. And then if the body's having trouble, remember things like heavy metals and biotoxins, even with the best function in the body, it has very difficult time getting these things out of the body. They oftentimes don't make it all the way out, they redistribute. So we upregulate cell function, very, very critical and important part of what real detox is. And then when we do that, now we have a vehicle like Cyto to make sure it goes all the way out of the body. Now we add ALA to this, and now we're uprooting the deep toxins, moving them from higher concentration to lower. It's magic. Now, there's one pitfall that often takes place. The body will move many of the toxins to the liver. Toxins have a natural affinity to fat, so they bind up with bile. Your liver makes bile that it's used to digest fat. It's stored in the gallbladder. Now you're following me. Okay, so the problem is that it brings so many toxins with it. Now here's the bigger problem. Of course, you dump the bile in the gut to digest fat. Your body reabsorbs most of the bile back to the liver just so it doesn't have to create it. So what happens? It auto-intoxicates. It just brings the toxins from the gut back to liver, from the gut back to liver. And by the way, some of which is recirculating and distributing in the body. How do we stop this problem? I'm telling you, I developed this over the years, but we have a binder in the gut that doesn't leave the gut. Matter of fact, it's called bind. So it sits in there and acts as a catcher's mitt. So when we dump that hepatic biliary sludge, that toxic biocomplex, we're dumping it into the catcher's mitt so it goes all the way out of the body. We don't auto-intoxicate. So you see what I'm saying? We start with upregulating cell function. We have vehicles to make sure it moves all the way out of the body. Then we have binders, real binders in the gut that sit in there and grab it and make sure it goes out. That's the system of true cellular.
And that's the formulas that you've designed over all these years that do all this.
Yeah, 15 years of designing this, yes.
Yeah. So that's really helpful because I know your products. I haven't used them, and I'm interested to do so. But I'm here to ask you a lot of questions today about all this stuff because I really, really love the Cyto Detox drops, but need to go a little further with the other products. And I'm curious about stage 2, this general body organ lymph system cleansing before we go to the brain. When would we know that's over?
You really don't. I mean, we do it for 3 or 4 months. I mean, some people can even do it for a month or two. I mean, honestly, a generally not very sick person can, do a prep phase for a month, a body phase for a month. How do you know when it's over? Here's what we say. If you start the brain phase and you're getting a lot of symptoms, go back to the body phase. If you start the body phase and you're getting a lot of symptoms, go back to the prep phase. I mean, of course, you could cut your doses in half as a first step, but, oftentimes people have to back up. I don't know when this is going to be aired, but I have, for the practitioners listening, I have my May seminar coming up in Atlanta, where I train people on this. So that might be an interest.
For sure.
There's me, Dr. Joe Mercola. We have just an amazing group coming together to really bring this message. So
very, very great. And in this brain phase, which is now stage 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So stage 3, the only thing that we're really doing different is now we're adding the ALA comes in at stage 3 to now get into the brain.
Yeah, now we're adding the fat soluble, boom, getting it into the brain. Now, at this point, sometimes I will add in this pituitary hypothalamus product. Most of the toxins, according to studies, especially heavy metals, are lodged in the pituitary hypothalamus. So by the way, if you're listening and you have silver fillings in your mouth, we said something very wise. Don't just run and get them out. We follow a prep phase before you get them out. And there's something you have to go to a dentist who knows how to bring them out safely. You won't get well completely with them in, but you have to make sure you have to get them out correctly. Now, so, with that said, once they come out, the body will start letting go. So people often get them out and go, yeah, I thought I felt something better or didn't feel anything. And then 9 months later, they're more sick. And why? Because the source is gone and the body starts mobilizing the metals out of the filling. So anyways, I was going to make another point. What was the point right before that? But I felt so I wanted to caution them on how to do that.
Yeah, and I also want to say that don't dare, please try to do any heavy metal detox if you still have fillings in your teeth, silver fillings in your teeth, because that's crazy.
When you're using true binders, whether it's DMSA, DMPS, Cyto, you get away with it for 6 months, some people less, some people more. So people go, well, I did. Look, the bottom line is you're going to eventually get to a point where you lower the body amounts, the cellular amounts to a point, then they will start pulling from the fillings, and then the crazies start. So, some people can get away with it and some people can even go ahead, but I felt better when I did the detox. Yeah, but give it time. You're never going to truly get well unless you remove those sources correctly. So, that's very important. I'm glad you mentioned that, Deborah.
For sure. And in this protocol that you do, and it's not that I mean to always compare it to the Cutler protocol, it's just that I'm very familiar with his.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering if in the protocol that you do, are you still cycling? And when does the cycling start?
Real detox, whether it's in nature or humans, is always cycled, right? I mean, that's why a woman's detox cycle every month is cycled. Nature cycles detox, right? I mean, it's the way it goes. So let's emulate it. So yes, whether it's 4 days on, 10 days off, 7 days off, cycles are different for everybody. Some people could do fine with a 7-day on, 7-day off. Some people do better with shorter cycles, longer. Believe it or not, some people do better with a little longer cycle, especially in the beginning. So, but yes, you cycle on and off, on and off. So, I know what I was going to say. Here was my caution. Glad I remembered. So,
good.
Why I add in the pituitary. I wanted to say this to those of you who have fillings in your mouth. Studies show that the number of fillings in your mouth is proportional to how much we find in your brain, particularly the hypothalamus pituitary. And that's what controls your endocrine system, your thyroid, your adrenals. So many people, including myself, are downstream trying to fix their adrenal fatigue, their thyroid issues, when the problem is in the brain. That's where the metal accumulates. There's a study called the duress study. Ladies, the number of fillings in your mouth is proportional to how much mercury on autopsies they find in babies' brains. So where does our mercury start? In utero. Where does our lead? Yep. The number one source of lead is from our mothers in utero. So again, this is where the accumulation starts. So this type of detox is years, not months. I did the brain phase for years. I got my life back completely. I'm healthier now, 52 this year, than I was even in my 20s, even before I got sick. So something to...
Yeah. Well, it's what a lot of people don't realize, that heavy metals are passed on and that we already born. And man, just thinking of having kids today is really scary, because the amount of people that are so heavy metal toxic, and then they're getting pregnant, and these poor children. And Lloyd would always say to me, Deb, how come so many children are having cancer? And man, with the environmental toxins and the toxins that now everybody is loaded with, and then they're getting pregnant, and then these poor children are sick within 4 or 5 months, and then they have 200 vaccinations. It's actually amazing that the body can even live 50 years with all that.
It is. I mean, look, even if a child doesn't end up on the autism spectrum, which if things go at the rate they are now, by 2032, 1 in 2 children are going to be on the autism spectrum. Are you kidding me? When I even hear that, it's hard for me to believe. But when you understand what's going on, you say, I get it. Now, even if you avoid that as a child, guess what's happening now? We're realizing that these children ending up with autoimmune, unexplainable illnesses later in life, in their 20s and their 30s. I'm telling you, it's a disaster. The bottom is ready to fall out. My passion is training doctors in these real cellular detox systems that, I can't boast or take credit. I only know what I know because God allowed me to go through it. So I'm telling you, it's real, it works, and people need to hear, because what's coming is a disaster.
Yeah, this is why I'm doing my show. I put my practice on hold because people were coming so sick, and to heal one patient that sick. I mean, I just know from working with Lloyd, my partner, just to try to help these mystery symptoms, this chronic pain stuff. It's like so much energy for one person. And in the end, it's like there's hundreds of people coming with more and more and sicker. And I thought, wow, I just need to to get the word out, and podcasting is so great for that because hopefully I can reach millions eventually instead of, the few hundred you can in a practice. But it's really great that you're training these doctors because it is really scary what's ahead of us. I can't even think of it sometimes.
No, I know. I mean, look, I still take some clients on virtually. I just call it coaching, right? But my passion is training doctors to do this because that's how we're going to impact the masses. And
absolutely.
Doing a radio show, I'm doing many shows of these. Even, my gosh, I've reached thousands through Facebook Live, which, I can't even believe. But it's through these online strategies. I do a show called Cellular Healing TV, and it's like reaching thousands. Mainstream media is not covering this stuff. I mean, there's a gentleman from the CDC, William Thompson, who comes out and admits falsifying studies. As a matter of fact, the study that pediatricians are hanging their hat on, that there's no link between vaccines and autism. This guy comes out and says he falsified it because there was a link and he was told by the CDC to do it. He comes out in guilt. Nothing in the mainstream media.
I know.
I know. He made a movie called Vaxxed, which they wanted to take out of the film festival. Thank God we have Robert Kennedy Jr. stepping up to the bat.
Exactly.
We have the actor who they took it out. Anyways, he has a grandson that has autism. The movie now is getting more attention, I think. Robert De Niro. So Robert De Niro is stepping up. I mean, in just saying, look, this movie Vaxxed isn't about anti-vaccine. This is about a cover-up that's going on at the CDC. And people need to know this. Nobody knows this. Nobody knows what's going on. It's so sad and sick. But
I was thinking who I could get from that movie to be on the show because, Dr. Cutler I saw in the other movie. That's how I found him. And, I wanted to do a show on mercury poisoning because, believe it or not, my mom died from a flu shot from mercury poisoning. So it was kind of my passion to expose that because the flu shot has 25 micrograms of mercury and it just put her over the edge and she went into a coma and ended up, with Guillain-Barré and dying from the complications of that. And so these poor children with all these vaccines and all this mercury in there, and it's just something that the world needs to know because it is a huge corruption and a political cover-up and the media is just quiet about it. But there are these underground organizations coming out with these kind of movies and documentaries telling the truth. So I'm happy at least about that, and hopefully it keeps growing and gets to the mainstream.
Yeah, no doubt. It's the only way because it's, pharma has the mainstream media, just hook, line, and sinker. And it's not
for sure. Okay, I won't keep you long, but I just want to give you a chance to get a little drink and move around a bit. And while you do that, I first want to welcome all the new listeners out there. I'm so happy to have you with us, and I hope you join us every week. Please be sure to check out my website, vidalspeaks.com, and there you can find the show notes and all my favorite products under the shop button, along with much more. And I want to ask you to please support this show by using the Amazon banner on my site for all your Amazon purchases. If you just click on that banner on my site, then just bookmark it for the future. And that way, every time you buy at Amazon, you'll allow them to send me a small commission at no cost to you. It really helps because I do the show all by myself. I spend a lot each month to produce it. So any way you can help, it's very much appreciated. You can donate also directly via my website. You can write a review or share the show with a friend. All of those are ways to support the show, and I thank you so much. The last couple of months, the show has grown, and our Vidal Speaks family is growing and growing, you guys. I know you know that I want 1 million because there's millions of sick people out there. And if I teach you, then I know you'll teach them and you'll help others and they'll help others. And soon it's going to be a movement. Okay, I love you guys just for being there every week. Thanks so much. Now let's get back to the show. Okay, so a bit about the cycles. What cycling do you say it varies for everybody, but is it always longer off than on?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that always because, like I said, some people do really good with a 7-7 cycle. In the beginning, some people actually do better on cycle. They actually go, "Oh my God, I can think, I feel better." I just, had a client yesterday that was the case, and but I at least try to say, let's make it equal.
Yeah. Okay. And are they starting when they start with the cyto detox drops in stage 2? Are they starting with very few drops and then you work them up slowly?
Typically, some people, like I said, I mean, can start right after it. Some people absolutely are more sensitive. So no doubt depends on the person.
And what if you were doing too much, would you just get an exacerbation of your already symptoms?
Right, exactly. If you're already symptoms, just, cut back on the dose. The nice thing about it is it's liquid. It's easy to dose.
Yeah, very. I just drop it on my tongue.
Mm-hmm.
And in stage 3, by then they're probably going a little bit stronger with the drops. What's the ultimate top range dose? Is it 10 drops 3 times a day?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some people can even take it 2 times a day. The half-life is kind of in between. I always dose it 3 times a day for sick people. Why take a chance, right? But some people do fine with it twice a day. But yeah, I mean, if you're challenged anyway, do it 3 times. Keep that stuff in your system. You'll get less redistribution. But I mean, I would say 10 drops 3 times a day. We have found, I mean, we have people going 15 and 20. It's kind of like DMSA. It's one of those things that more is not necessarily better, but there's those people who do better with more. So
yeah, right.
If I had to put a number on it, I would say, okay, 20 drops 3 times a day is as high as I ever go. But I stick probably more around 10. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. But that gives listeners kind of a good idea how it works. And this half-life idea is important because that means that if it comes out of the system too long, then it starts redistributing back to your body, which eventually goes back into your brain. So the reason you need to do it and is more helpful to do it 3 times a day, because then you prevent that. Whereas, like I know when you get into that brain phase, in the Cutler protocol, he does the every 4 hours, so people are having to wake up in sleep every 4 hours to even take it because you can't go past that. But in your protocol, you're saying 3 times a day is enough because we're using the cyto detox. But when you get to the stage 3 and you're doing the brain and you're adding the ALA, are you having people wake up every 4 hours to do it since that's the half-life of ALA?
Well, we do. Some people we don't. One of the things that we discovered, because I train doctors and we get together and say, what are you finding? Is the cool thing about the cyto ALA combination is we realized that we didn't have to give it the ALA every 4 hours, and 95% of the people were fine. And why is that? It's because the cyto detox really just mops up so well. So nothing magical. The same isn't true for DMSA though. It seems like the DMSA you still have to give every 4 hours. We have had many who don't have to get up as long as they dose the cyto before bed. But so it really has opened up a new world with the cyto of reducing redistribution so well that you don't have to be as crippled by waking up every 4 hours.
Well, that's so great because that is like a big, downside to that other protocol. Just whether it's a child, poor moms are already like so stressed, and then having to do this, wake up and be right on the minute and can't be late. It's kind of a scary thought. But DMSA and DMPS, I don't know how many years ago, but I know that's what got you really worried about your practice is when the United States took it off the list for us to be able to buy over the counter, and they made it by prescription only.
Right.
Now nobody can get it. And even I know the Cutler people, they're ordering it from Australia. So it's really life-changing now to make it so hard like that for people to get it. So all the more reason I wanted to do the show for people to know about cyto detox drops. And although that product that you're so involved in, cyto detox, even though I know you're not the inventor, but you love it because you found it to replace the DMSA that they had taken off the market, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And look, I'm not even saying that if a practitioner can get DMSA, it's an outdated tool. It's water soluble. It still does a good job. But as you and I know, there were some shortcomings with DMSA, right? And it was it always flared up candida for candida people. We don't have that with cyto. But it still can be a usable tool. I'm not going to say, hey, don't ever use DMSA. It works very differently, I would say, than cyto. It binds differently. So it could still be a useful tool. We just have a new tool, and the more tools we have, the better. I have some scientists right now. We're just working on some different new tools, right? It's constantly trying to give us more advantages.
And was it that you found CytoDetox right after that, so you didn't have to go for too long of a period with your patients without anything?
It was absolutely remarkable. I think there was a gap, but I have to say that maybe not. I can't even remember, but here's how the story went. I can tell you that is literally, I was very distraught about what was happening with the FDA and them taking it. And I was, cursing them in some format or complaining. And my wife said, you need to pray about it. You need to pray about it. It's like, because that's how everything comes to you. And so I did. And literally, I'm telling you, within a week, it's this gentleman calls and says, you need to check out this product. And it was a liquid zeolite. So I wasn't really interested. I've looked at those things and, nano this, nano that. It's like they didn't work. And so, he said, you need to talk to the scientist. And I did. And then eventually I went he's right outside of Cleveland Clinic. I went out and saw what they were doing. And I said, okay, this one's different. So we started using it with about 30 of our close group of doctors. And first thing we noticed is we could herx somebody, right? It's like, which the other products you could never do. So the first thing was like, okay, we can take a healthy person, that doesn't have leaky gut and go, hey, no symptoms, right? Or I'm sorry, we can create symptoms. That's good. That means it's actually binding something, right? So then we realized, okay, it worked. Then it was like, okay, how do we use it? And we were excited. We all got amazing results. And but first thing we did is start trying to get a reaction, because the other ones, unless someone had severe leaky gut, you couldn't get a reaction. So anyways, that was exciting.
Yeah, I can only imagine like how horrible that would be. You've done such good work and suddenly they take your product off the market. Yeah. That's going to make it so hard. But what a miracle to have found this, and what a miracle that this inventor just figured out a way because of the toxicity of all the other zeolite drops. And I was super excited when I found it. I remember I was up late sitting by the fire and I clicked on a click. And I think it was from the Mike Adams testing thing. And then it took me to your site. And I went, oh my God, this is my answer. This is fantastic. Because I'm a professional golfer and played 11 years on the tour. But I played 20 years on golf courses that are totally pesticide. That's why I left the tour. I was so chronically sick from all the pesticides. I had one sinus infection after another. Even sinus surgery, nothing fixed them. And I never was a person to do any drugs, but I got so sick, I even had to try the antibiotics. Nothing worked. Wow. And then between that and hurting my back, and I started out with a bad injury at 11, so my back was always challenged anyway, but I had to leave the tour because of that. And that's what got me so interested in detox, because I knew that if I didn't, all my friends on tour, we had like 8 people die of breast cancer. Nobody had died of breast cancer in the previous 42-year history of the LPGA. And I had 8 friends die of breast cancer in that 11-year period that I played, not mentioning about 8 more since. So it's kind of like, man, I'm going to be one of those if I don't get this stuff out of me. So I was thinking it more just from pesticides, not even thinking metals at that point.
Yeah, they use these particles in nature to clean up pesticide spills. So, we know that if we can get it into, in and around the cell, this is going to work. And he did that. I can't say he did that. So yeah, it's remarkable. It's so funny you said that about golfers. I didn't know you were a professional golfer, but yesterday I was thinking to myself, I would love to do some type of, study on golfers to see their leaky gut, autoimmune, in different, different conditions that they have. I thought it must be unbelievable because of all the glyphosate and chemicals that they use. So you just answered that question. But you don't hear this. How come you don't hear these pros that have been out there? I mean, what it must be known. I mean, do they talk about it within one?
No, they don't really talk about it. And it's like they don't take part, it's how your world can be so separate sometimes, like when you could be really good at something else. And, maybe they can even say they're really into health, but maybe they're into health because they eat a paleo diet and they don't know anything about detox. They just know that I'm doing the right thing. But then, usually what triggers that way is when someone becomes ill, then they start looking for questions. And I've been into health all my life, so I always worried about that. I knew I was really sensitive. I'd play on courses, and I knew that I got sick the moment I would get to a course. I could tell that my exposure was too high. I was just more aware because I grew up always into kind of very interested in natural health. I was in an accident at the age of 11. The listeners know this. They've heard me tell this story, but I was thrown from my horse and I actually died and left my body and watched them resuscitate me, and I came back.
Oh my God.
Ever since that time, I kind of have felt that my work here is to help people. And somehow at the age of 23, my dad's a doctor. He's an ophthalmologist. He's retired now, but I was very interested. I was the one of the kids that was going to go to medical school, but I didn't like regular medicine. So at the age of 11, after my accident, I was left with really serious migraines. So 10 days a month, I would be vomiting and be really sick unless I took aspirin. And so I was on the search from a very young age to try to heal myself through diet. I was pretty much plant-based since then, although I didn't really know what that was. And of course, I ate some cheese, and if I had to do something, but I became a conscious vegetarian at the age of 11 because I just couldn't eat animals. It was just, I couldn't. And then for health purposes. And so you just go on this search when you become sick and you want to get better. And then people would tell you, oh, but your neck is a mess from your accident and your back, and it's why you have headaches. And I'd say, but then why don't I have them every day? If I can have 20 days without a headache, then I should be able to heal myself. It just never made sense to me. So I just kept searching. And it's so true. I think if you're not exposed to that idea of health in the way of detox, I think everybody knows now that the world is getting toxic. But I think people kind of turn a blind eye to how it may be affecting them. Absolutely. And I honestly can tell you that even my golfing friends, I don't think I've ever had a conversation with them bringing it up first about, I'm really worried that I play the tour and I'm out on these golf courses every day, and maybe it's doing something for me. But I just keep watching more and more friends. But it doesn't even have to be on golf. I'm a homeopath, and I do a study group where we all meet, and it's small. It's only like 15 people, and 6 have already died from cancer, and these are homeopaths. Mm-hmm. So you don't need golf. I think accelerates the process because the level of glyphosates is so high. And I had Stephanie Seneff on our podcast, and she can tell you that it's the single most toxic molecule to humankind, and it's in everything and everywhere. And so, I really worry about that as a golfer. I mean, I would like to do an episode on how golf is toxic, but I also kind of feel bad because I know a lot of people use it as their recreation and fun, but it's scary how toxic it is.
Yeah, glyphosate, it's sprayed on everything that we're eating, putting in our bodies. And, one of set of studies was showed that it basically allows heavy metals to penetrate deeper into the nerve tissue and brain, and therefore making them more toxic. And again, a part of the perfect storm that's going on with vaccinations in children is the glyphosate with the over vaccinations. I mean, it is an absolute recipe for disaster.
It is. And if you add that into all the aluminum in there too, oh my gosh, it's just unbelievable. These poor children. Yes, to be a child today, it's what a sad thing. That's why I'm so happy you're doing your work, training more doctors so they can reverse so many of these children's life sentence.
I think that when we look at the MDs on one side, they're just giving more medications stuck in a failing model. And then we look at the alternative doctors who are just giving vitamins and minerals oftentimes, and there's a time and a place for either. And I'll make the argument. However, if you're not upstream and really going at this from a cellular detox perspective, what ultimately are we doing? The answer lies at the cell. The answer lies in removing these causes of what's triggering our bad genes, these causes of what's driving cellular inflammation, hormone resistance. It's toxins, the number one source. We're missing it. We are missing it. And yet, if you flip on the dang television, the media just wants to talk about another, low fat, low calorie diet or this or that or the other darn thing. And they're missing the reason why people don't feel well. We need to wake up.
Well, and the state of the environment is pushing this to the top. It's always been the case that toxins are driving our poor health. But now it's to the point where the levels are so high that I say this on my show all the time, if you are not actively doing something to detox, then you will become sick. It's like playing Russian roulette. You can no longer think that just eating clean and going to sleep and doing a little exercise, because everybody is breathing in mercury every day from the air. If they're eating out of the ocean, there's mercury there. So you need to be doing something. And you're right. This is why I so loved getting you on the show, because you're the only person, other than I know Cutler's protocol, but that really is going all the way to the brain. I'm like the detox queen. I know a lot of ways to detox, but when you get to the cells in the brain, you need to be careful. There's a lot of dangerous stuff out there that'll make you more sick.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Listen, that's why I'll keep doing the shows every moment I have. And I travel a lot, teaching a lot, but the message needs to be heard. So
yeah, it's so true. And when you get into your brain phase, the ALA, using that ALA, are you also using a very low dose, or do you ever have people use like the 100 or 200 milligrams?
It's different for everybody. Some people you have to start with very low dose. Some people can just go right after it. And we know this, again, with Cyto, we're able to, people are able to use higher doses.
That's so fantastic.
It's been a blessing there as well.
Wow, that's so great. And I did a training in hair analysis because I was so interested in learning about detox and how our, I guess I could say, body handles and pushes out heavy metals and stuff. And one of the things that I learned is that the heavy metals kind of displace the minerals, right? So they kind of sit in a place where your minerals should be. And so when we detox heavy metals out, do these people then become mineral deficient, and are they needing to supplement to get the minerals back once they start pulling heavy metals out of the body?
It's very important. It's part of the program. When you pull out heavy metals, you create what we call mineral gaps. And, we want to put those minerals back in there. And the heavy metals compete for the same receptors as minerals, so it causes a lot of mineral issues.
And when you put those back in, are you doing it all along the way or only on the days off of the cycle?
Yeah, no, you can do it with both. Some people can take it daily. Sometimes to simplify things, we just do it on an off cycle, but it can be taken daily. Cyto really doesn't go after the minerals. But people always think, well, it doesn't go after the minerals, so I don't need to worry about my minerals. No, you're wrong. It's, you're pulling out heavy metals. You need to worry about mineral replacement.
For sure. Yeah, in general, I think so many people are mineral deficient, but that's because, as you said, it all comes back to toxins. If your toxins are filling the gaps of where the minerals should be, then of course you're going to be mineral.
Because people say, I'm taking minerals. You'll never win the battle unless you deal with the heavy metals.
Right. And what about testing? I think I remember you saying that maybe it was you personally did the challenge test, and maybe you can say what that is. And is that still what you regard? Because I know there's some people say that's dangerous and that some did it and it made them sick. But so can we talk a little bit about what's a good test?
Yeah, there's truth to that, right? A blood test is only going to show acute. So throw that out the window, meaning that you're getting some type of exposure, day in, day out, because the metals, after a couple of days, they're in the tissue. Look, I'll say this right now. There's no perfect test, because ultimately, without biopsying the brain, the deep tissue, that's what we want to see. Of course, you're not going to do that. So we're only, even with a challenge test, looking what's in the body is an idea of what's in the brain, which is not always a perfect correlation. So no perfect test. However, I know like Cutler, for example, loves the hair test. And again, he's not looking. Here's where people go wrong. You're not looking at the actual metals that in the hair. You're actually looking at mineral displacement. I think you
exactly
pointed that out. I think that's a viable way. I think the downside of that is practitioners don't understand it and the patients definitely don't understand it. Okay, so
for sure.
Oftentimes we're doing a test for the patient more than ourselves. So that's a problem. There's something called urine porphins. It's an accurate way of assessing it. Doctors don't understand it. Patients don't understand it. It's a way of looking at these porphins, that come off in the presence of certain toxins, right? All right. And then there's the challenge where we give someone a water-soluble chelator like DMSA or DMPS and challenge it out. And then we measure what's in the urine. It's good. We're basically looking at what's in the tissue in the body, not in the brain. So there's a pitfall there. Now, here's the problem, is when people would go and do an IV of DMPS, for example, and then measure. Well, the problem is the DMPS goes in, it goes away in 8-10 hours. And now all of a sudden you got your test, but now you're redistributing all these metals. So if you're going to do a challenge, you have to use an oral chelator and then stay on it for at least 3 days after the test. So you take a bulk dose, say, 100 milligrams per 10 pounds of body weight, and then you stay on a certain amount every 4 hours within the half-life for 3 days. That's the proper way to do a challenge test. So, I think, all of those tests can be fine if done correctly. But again,
now,
no perfect.
Couldn't you also just say, like, do I really need to test because we're all exposed? And if you have, you can look up your symptoms and what mercury toxicity can include so many, but so can lead and so can all kinds of, other metals. Couldn't you also say that, there's limitations to every test, that maybe it's just a good idea to just assume you're toxic and do it? What do you really have to lose but feel better?
Absolutely. If you live on this planet, which I think everyone listening does, maybe not, who knows? The point is that yes, with the presence of glyphosate and the metals you just got from your mom, for goodness sakes, you grew up in the lead generation, the mercury generation, you need to do brain phases, bottom line.
Yeah, and that when you say phases, you're basically talking cycles to get time to take it slowly out of the brain.
Yeah.
And how long does that take to come out of the brain? Is it a couple years?
Look, I did brain phases for several years, and it doesn't mean after a couple years of doing it very consistently, then I did longer off cycles. I'd take a month or two off and then do a cycle. So it's years, not months. And I always say for the average person in perfect health, gosh, do at least 6 months of brain phases, for goodness sakes. But I still do them. I still do, a few a year, just because, again, I'm definitely never going back there. Never. We're all constantly exposed, and maybe I have certain pathways that, again, genetically, I'm not as good at getting rid of heavy metals. But I know this: I will continue to periodically do brain phases, whether I have symptoms or not.
And when you do it now, what are your cycles? How many days on do you do?
Yeah, I like to do 4 or 5 days on. I like 5. And I get off cycle. It could be a few months in between cycles, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, yeah.
And in those 4 or 5 days, you're doing the ALA and the cyto detox. But on your 3 months off, are you still taking cyto detox?
No, I'm not. If I travel, I do. I may take it like just a very light, dose as I travel, and bind up even the radiation flying. It's creates some oxidative particles. There may be occasions where I just take a very low dose simply by itself. But when I do a cycle, I take it within my system. I take Bind, I take G-Cell, I take Moors, I take Vista, I take, and then I'm taking ALA and I'm taking Cyto. That's what I just did. I did that cycle 3 weeks ago, actually.
So you're doing the whole cycle, and then when you're off of all of that stuff. You don't take any of that.
Exactly. When I'm off.
And so basically when you kind of feel you're done, you've been getting better along the way. For someone, they're 1 year, now they're 2 years, and they feel they're over it, and they go a long period of time without symptoms. At that point, they could just do kind of preventative cycles like you're doing it, but there's no need to continue with the cyto detox unless you're just doing it as 1 or 2 or 3 cycles a year for good health.
Right. Yeah. People want to, stay on these things. I don't believe that. It's you're just, why are you challenging your body? Again, detox is cycled in nature. Let's emulate it.
Yeah. And the other thing I just want you to speak about is about these, what you think are kind of dangerous. You have a video on your site that I'm going to put the link in the show notes, but kind of dangerous detoxing methods. And I would like you to speak of a few of the things that you don't agree with what people are doing in trying to detox.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that when you look at just people taking like large amounts of chlorella or cilantro, those are weak binders. And if you really have a heavy metal issue, it's going to make you worse. So you have to be careful. Even people taking just random ALA and they don't realize what the symptoms are from, it can, create a redistribution of metals in people. So you have to be careful, with those things.
And redistribution, that's what I think people don't understand. They may think they're doing good taking chlorella or cilantro, and although cilantro is a kind of binder, you have to have something that helps bring it out of the body, and that's what the cyto detox does, because it's the replacement for DMSA, but they're just doing this without anything, and so then what happens is it might pull it out of your body, but it doesn't all come out, and so then when you're done, it just goes back. And in the end, like Dr. Cutler said, you're just basically filling your brain with more mercury because it's going to go into your brain eventually. So that's kind of a scary thought. That's a good reason not to do that stuff. But should that deter anyone from eating cilantro in their salad or their salsa? Or
those are minor amounts. I mean, when I was sick, I juiced cilantro, and my wife thought she was going to have to check me into an insane asylum. But yeah, I mean, it's don't take it in chelatable amounts. I mean, a little bit in your salad, you're not going to notice a difference, in the whole herb like that, eating it. So, you're fine. But, I hate to run, but I have a top of the hour appointment, but I loved our conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for speaking today and joining us. I really appreciate your time and your passion to do what you're doing. So thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, and people should get on my Facebook and my Cell TV. That's where you can see more of what I do.
Okay, and just tell them quickly about your name under Facebook and your website and where they can follow your work.
Yeah, it's drpompa.com, and that's where you can access Cell TV there. So it's DR, and then my last name, POMPA.com. And if you catch me on my fan page of Facebook, it's just Dr. Daniel Pompa, and you can find it. I do a Facebook Live every day. So.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pompa. It's been great.
You're welcome. Thank you, Deborah. Bye-bye.
So what'd you guys think about that one? I hope you understood what we were talking about. I always call myself the detox queen because I'm a bit obsessed with it. But that's not just by chance. I too got sick from an overload of pesticide during my 20 plus years of golfing, especially my 11 years on the tour. It's a toxic sport in that regard. Also, Lloyd has his mystery pain syndrome now for 8 years, so I'm on a journey to heal that. I finally can say years later that I've learned so much, and I really do believe that I can help so many people now from what I've learned. I feel pretty certain Lloyd will heal from this too, but sadly it's taken me all these years to get what I needed to know. But finally we're going to start our official detox cycles now that I understand how to do it in a plant-based way. So stay tuned for more details about this protocol. I hope to offer you Dr. Pompa's protocol that many other doctors are selling out there, but I need to refine it and make it plant-based before I put the word out there. Meanwhile, just learn how important it is to detox properly and beware of using anything that claims that they are doing that if they're not using a true binding agent. Remember, a true binding agent is DMSA, DMPS, or cytodetox drops. Zeolite is a true binding agent, but most zeolite is very toxic because it's so filled with aluminum. Some people get really sick when they use products or food like cilantro because they're not true binding agents, and then they just end up redistributing all the toxins around their body and they go back into their brain. So the only way to heal is to fix the cell and then use a true binding agent that will carry the toxins out of the body. Please don't forget that. Well, you guys, that's it for today. As my British mom would say, ta-ta for now. I hope you enjoyed the show today, and I know that you know what time it is. It's time to say goodbye. Vidal has spoken. Remember, you heal with a plant-powered diet, homeopathy, and detoxing, of course. Peace. Be healthy. Be free. Live life.